The Other America by Emily Sanchez and Stephanie Otimio.
Many individuals believed America was rich and successful, but as Michael Harrington showed in The Other America, millions of people were living in poverty, the truth that was hidden because the public didn't have the full view.
James Baldwin was the oldest of 9 children who grew up in poverty. He was a novelist, essayist, and playwright. Despite the situation he grew up in. Using what he knew, James Baldwin wrote, demonstrating the struggles African Americans faced against injustice and discrimination. He strongly believed that freedom had not been fully achieved and that people were celebrating too soon, as change still needed to happen.
Baldwin's words remind us as people that true freedom needs action and understanding.
Despite the way Americans and the American lifestyle was portrayed, many Americans lived below the poverty level. The people mainly affected were elders, children, and women, and people from minority groups. This resulted in the White Flight. The White Flight is an event where millions of middle-class people migrated from the cities to the suburbs. During the White Flight, the rural poor migrated to the inner cities. This resulted in 5 million African Americans to move between World War II and 1960s. The aftermath of the migrations not only affected the whites but also the non-whites, making the city government not be able to maintain or improve schools, transportation, police, and even fire departments.
Many buildings at the time were being destroyed in order to build new housing, hoping to improve city life. However, this often forced poor families out of their homes. The National Housing Act was an act that was passed in 1949, providing better housing for American families. Most of the individuals, being African Americans, Native Americans, and Latinos in the cities, had no other choice but to live in dirty, crowded slums. One quote was, although dilapidated areas were raised, parking lots, shopping centers, highways, parks, and factories were constructed on some of the cleared land, and there was seldom enough new housing built to accommodate all the displaced people.
During the 1950s, African Americans began to take action in hope of reducing racial discrimination and segregation. This prompted other minority groups to also take action, inspired by the civil rights movement. For example, Mexican American activism grew when a change in government policy occurred under the Eisenhower administration that caused Native Americans to protest.
Many Mexicans came to the U.S. to work on farms through a program, but many stayed even after the work ended. In 1942, the U.S. created the Bracero program to solve the farm labor shortage during the time. Many of the Mexican workers were only supposed to stay temporarily, but many remained in the U.S. after their jobs ended, highlighting how economic needs and migration were deeply connected, affecting both U.S. agriculture and immigration patterns. Braceros were Mexican laborers allowed in the U.S. for a limited time as agricultural workers, which started from 1942 and ended in 1946. A quote says, when the United States entered World War II, the shortage of agricultural labor spurred the federal government to initiate in 1942 a program in which Mexican braceros or hired hands were allowed into the United States to harvest crops.
A pivotal event in prejudice against Mexican Americans was the Longoria incident. This was where Felix Longoria, who was a Mexican American World War II hero, was killed in the Philippines. His hometown of Texas, denied his family a funeral service. This caused Mexican Americans to grow their actions against discrimination after being enraged by the situation that had happened to Felix Longoria. Mexican American veterans organized the GI Forum. Ignacio Lopez, who was an activist, founded the Unity League of California to register Mexican American voters and to promote candidates that will help them bring about the change they were looking for.
In 1953, the U.S. government ends up trying to stop helping Native American tribes and move them to cities, but their plan ends up failing. The termination policy took away many federal supports and broke up tribal lands, which ended up hurting Native American communities. Many people that ended up moving to cities couldn't find jobs because of poor training and racism.
The termination policy failed, however, Indian Affairs the Indian Affairs relocated 35,000 Native Americans to urban areas, and as said, this resulted in people not finding jobs in the new areas because of racism. Americans also lacked medical care as a result of abolishing federal programs. As stated, Bureau of Indian Affairs helped relocate 35,000 Native Americans to urban areas during the 1950s. They were often unable to find jobs in their new locations because of poor training and racial prejudice. They were also left without access to medical care when federal programs were abolished in 1963. The termination policy was abandoned. Thankfully, the termination policy was abandoned in 1963.